one of the things I've been talking to a couple of the other young fellas that are kind of in, what do you want to call it, the regenerative ag but non-homestead sector of YouTube, has been the issue of what do you do about repetition, and in the sense that struggling to find something new to talk about, or the fact that one day is often the same as the next. And I guess one of the things that I told one fella is to think about the things that you think about all day long and discuss those out loud as a means of maintaining velocity. And that's what I'm doing right now. How many times have I taken videos of these dogs climbing all over me, and the animals eating hay, and what I'm trying to do is maintain velocity and also be realistic about what this thing is. And what I mean by that is, let's first differentiate between a homestead channel and a farming channel. Homestead channel is homesteading, I would call a lifestyle. And I kind of cringe even saying that, because lifestyle is such a stupid word. But it is. It's just showing how you live life. And I have not really been attracted to those channels. I am approaching farming as a great way of life that is a business. And that's why I follow the couple of few guys that I do, because they're doing the same thing and I can learn from them. But part of the reality of no matter, if you look at anybody who's doing this as a business, is that there's a certain level of repetition in it. And there's only so much interest that you're going to find in feeding hay. And to be honest, I live for these uneventful days. I mean, look how gloomy it is. It's just, ugh, the snow's kind of melting and turning into muck. But this is a great day, because eventful things that happen during winter are usually bad news. When we've had coyote pressure and wild dog pressure, and animals getting out and not doing what they're supposed to, and hopefully we never have to deal too much with animals getting sick. My neighbor, he's been going to the gates of heaven trying to keep one of his cows alive right now, and I kind of admire that tenacity. But I would never want. I hope I never have to deal with it. Anyway, but part of farming is recognizing the joy of repetition. And that what you're really doing in these kind of down days is maintaining velocity to the joy of what's to come. Spring, green grass, sunshine, lambs dancing through the field, and that's important. I think is to recognize that doing each day well in a farm setting like this, where it might be a little gloomy, or it might be a little mucky or dark, what I'm doing is maintaining velocity so that my farm can accelerate with no delay once spring comes. And so it's just a thought there. But I did get a new fence charger. I kind of saw, with the unusual amount of snow load on my speed right, that it just didn't quite have the oomph to overcome all the snow load. I mean, there's just snow stacked up on, to the top two wires on my fence. So one of the things that I've been struggling with a bit has been a weak fence. I have just massive snow load on it, but I suspect there's another ground out there somewhere else that I have to trace down. And I don't know if you can see, we're only sitting at about 3,000 volts, with it's drawing 10 amps along the fence. So I have something that I have that will solve this problem in a very lazy way. And just like that, we're back to 7,000 volts, even with 27 amps of load from this dumb snowfall. And so I went out and I went from like a 9 joule Energizer to a 41 joule Energizer, and it is just bumping along. Yeah, I don't know if there's any amount of money you could pay me to just voluntarily reach out and grab that thing right now. It's got a lot of juice in it, but you know, the right equipment for the right time, and I probably didn't need to go that big, but I know I'll grow into it, and I did overreact a little bit about how low my fence had been getting. So one thing that I know I've heard Greg Judy say is you'll never be sad you bought the bigger Energizer, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. It's a significant investment, but it's one that'll pay back over time, I think. But, well, I'd better go feed chickens and feed the chicken dog and collect eggs, and I think that's all I got left to do. They're doing pretty good, these animals. They're not hurting. It's March 1st, so I figure about another 3 weeks before we get down to the ground. 2 weeks till we get down to all the snow to melt off, and maybe 3 weeks. It's feeling like it's gonna be a late spring, and then we deal with mud, and you'll hear me complain about something else, I guess. All right. Here's our 2023 layer flock additions. If you can believe it, just not a month, maybe a month ago, these were still in an egg. We got them at the very, very end of January, and we were very happy to move them out into the garage. I just whipped together from old OSB and some zip ties and some heat lamps. And once they were fully feathered out, they moved out here. And this is a much better environment for them. I've noticed they've calmed down significantly just even getting outside a little bit. I'm not certain why, but that's kind of the observation that I've seen. Other than that, they tend to pack up. They get in these bundles like this, and then 10 minutes later, they'll be zipping around. You know, I guess it's kind of just the youth of the animal. Kind of like lambs. They'll go from sleeping to, you know, prancing all four legs off the ground, just happy to be alive. But yeah, no deaths out of this bunch. But again, I think I've reflected on this in the past, but I think as I go through doing this and just the extra headache that comes from bringing chicks in Minnesota in this time of the year, I don't think I'll do this again. And instead, I'll just try to time my layer hen cullings a little bit better. So everything's good here. So as I've been feeding them on this side of the field to try to bring them over, one of the things I've observed is the sheep have been migrating back and forth to kind of where I'd been feeding hay most of the winter, because that's where they had their campsite sort of established. And sheep and I think goats all make a campsite if you don't move them. And so I left it for a few days just to see if they'd move over here, and I kind of sat out here and watched them, and they would come over here and eat and drink, and they have mineral over here in that black bucket, and then they'd wander over and lay down where they've been eating before. And so that wasn't going to do it for me, so I just put up two wires and kind of hem them into this small, I'd guess this is maybe a quarter acre, maybe. And we're going to feed in here for about 1 week, and then they're going to move out to this field here. We call it the triangle field because it's, you know, shaped like a triangle. But in case, you know, my sheep are broke to one wire. The second wire is actually for these dogs, as I'm trying to train them up. And then I have that new calf who's not necessarily well trained to hot wire, so I'm kind of working on that one. But this is kind of what they're eating for today. And they had some in the morning. I just threw a bunch out as fast as I could and gave them the rest just now. But yeah, so we're penning them in to hold them off of their old campsite and try to train them onto that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have sheep with a campsite, you have to stop them from returning because they are going 300 yards that way to go lay down. And, you know, doing that's going to help reduce parasite load as it warms up particularly. They need to be off their muck and you need to start giving them fresh ground on a daily basis, or I guess maybe you could get away with every 2 or 3 days if you were busy. But they're busy eating, and that's about all they're doing right now. So I have to go bring dog food up for the dogs, and there was something else. Oh, I had to bring out a new salt mineral block for them. In the winter, I use a mineral block instead of loose mineral, basically because it ends up turning into like a snow slurry with the amount of snow we have, and so there's a lot of waste of mineral, and it doesn't work well. And once we get out of like snow time, we'll go back to loose mineral. And I prefer loose mineral because it is easy for them to consume at the rate that they need it, instead of having to gnaw on a solidified block. But not much else going on. Thinking about farm velocity, trying to keep things moving, keep myself moving. All right.